Welcome to my channel, everyone. In this video, I'd like to show, this is a follow-up video to my little update on Sunday. It was the Martin and Julie update. And in that little update, I showed you guys the table that we're going to be painting. And I showed you guys a little segment on flock. And I had a few questions about that by people who asked me if I could please just show how we do it. Okay, so here are all the ingredients for making my flock. My cup of water. I have these cups. These are the little piles of sawdust that Julie was sifting on Saturday rather, sorry. And so that's all separated, and then I took those little piles, put them in a separate little cup because I'm going to use separate paints for each. And then I have the coarse stuff here. All right, and I really need this flock for those regiment bases, so that's why I figured I'd just get this done and show you guys. So first things first, I'm going to use this dark color, and hopefully the paints cooperate because some of these are a little stiff. I'm using apple barrel paints for this. Never, ever, ever use your expensive paints. Obviously, no model paints. You know, I just use this stuff, and I get a lot of this stuff for like 80 cents, 59 cents. So I pour, I don't have any measurements or anything like that. I just do it by eye, you know, pour a bunch in there. Take my tacky glue, and this glue is very thick. You can also use, don't do that. You can also use Elmer's glue. So let me see if I can get this tacky glue to work. Okay, and there's my tacky glue. And again, you know, I just do it by eye. I just throw in a certain amount, and there it is. It looks like a little pastry or something. I don't know, weird. And then I take some water. Now, some people use warm water. It helps to kind of dilute the paint and the glue easier. And I use about that much water, right? And I pour water as I need it. I take my shaking tool, and you can use a craft stick for this. I'm going to use my metal tool, but basically the idea is you want to mix everything. Everything gets nice and clumpy, and I'm going to need a little bit more water. All right. So it can get a little sloshy. That's okay. The sawdust is going to absorb a lot of that water, right? So if you have a little bit of water on the bottom when you take it out, it's okay. I'm going to stick this in the microwave. Remember that. And so, you know, that'll help dry it up. And in 24 hours, it should be nice and dry. Drying times really vary, guys. It depends on how much water you put in and whether or not you use the microwave technique. I usually put it in for a minute, let it kind of cool off a little bit, and then put it in for another minute. You know, and I'll kind of do that. I'll give it a break, put it in, and in total, I use like 5 minutes, right? Giving a little break in between, and I watch it. I mean, if it's you know, if it's already kind of dry once it comes out of the microwave, then I stop. I wouldn't go any more than 5 minutes on the microwave. And again, that's taking it out, putting it in, taking it out, doing like a minute at a time. And once you start doing this for a long time, then you begin to kind of judge how much time you want to put it. Some people just put it in for 2 minutes, you know, which is fine. You don't want it too much because you don't want to burn the sawdust either. You know, you start to get that like sawdusty smell, and you don't want to. Okay, so, and this is safe. I've done it for years. You know, I learned this technique from our colleagues in the railroad hobby. They do this stuff all the time. You know, they stick it in the microwave, etc. So, all right, so this one is done, and I'm going to put this aside and then take my next pile and do the same thing with my sort of brighter green. So I'm just going to pour some in there. And this one is Spring Green from Apple Barrel. And this one was English Ivy Green from apple barrel. I'm trying to get things focused, but there you go. English ivy green. Okay. And I'm probably going to change this one. This is like a really bright green. I'm probably going to change that one in a minute. I'll show you guys the color variant that I'm going to use. Okay, so I'm going to pour my water. All right, and that should be good to start. This is a smaller pile, so if I accidentally pour too much water, I just take from another pile and add more sawdust, you know. Again, the piles, I try to have them even in each cup, but it doesn't necessarily, you know, you don't have to have them even. If you want your flock to be more like brighter, then you might want more in one pile than the other and use the brighter color in your, you know, your bigger pile, right? If you want your flock to be a little darker, then that's what you do. You have full control over the color of your flock. And now remember, once all these are dry, I mix them all together. I make kind of like a summer blend. So, or you can keep these individually if you want to, individual little containers once it's all dry, and just have different shades of green and mix them up as you go. You don't have to mix up the whole pile. Any way you want to go. So, okay, so this one's done. And I'll do the last one. And then we're good to go on the microwave. Okay, now this one's done. So I'm going to set this aside. And now it's just going to air dry. Okay, so I'm back in the studio. And these powders are already pretty much dry. I mean, this is what you want. You don't want paint residue. You know, there might be a little bit of paint residue left there, right? But these are feeling nice and dry. They're kind of, you notice how it falls, right? And same with this one. Okay, that's not bad. So it's gonna need a little more. You want to make sure it's absolutely dry before you put it on your models or whatever. You know, and especially before you mix them, just make sure you're absolutely dry. Now, what I did is I put it in the microwave 2 minutes. And I'm there all the time. I don't walk away and kind of do other stuff. I'm watching what's going on. And take it out after 2 minutes and do this. I have my little wooden sculpting tool. And I kind of do this, right? And just break up those clumps while it's wet. Also scrape it. You notice that some of it will stick there when you put it in the microwave. And even if you let it air dry and you skip the microwave part, you're going to want to do this. Come back every so often. Maybe after 24 hours, and kind of do this, scrape it up, so you get as much powder as possible out of this batch, right? And it's like that chemical principle where you're, you know, comparing net loss and yield, right? To see if it's really profitable. Well, same thing here. You kind of want to make sure that it doesn't, some of it will stick there, and there's some powder that you may inevitably lose, and, you know, that's okay. But if you, let's say, stick it in the microwave for 5 minutes and walk away and just forget about it, you may come back and find a very nicely textured plate, because it will stick to this plate. And I'm using paper plates here. That's all I'm using. Nothing special, nothing fancy. And I come back and kind of undo these little clumps, and this is going to be ready by this afternoon. I don't even have to wait till tomorrow. It's a very good batch. I'm going to be able to mix this all together, and I may keep some a couple of pinches separately. What I do once it's done is I have these Tupperware containers. You can see some of the flock in there, and I separate them the different colors. If I'm using little batches, right, of separate colors, then I use a smaller container like these. And these I get in a dollar store. This actually stores a lot of flock. So I would separate them by colors, and then when I want to mix them all together, I separate them in the Tupperwares. And I have them ready for whatever projects I want. And I use this flock for tons of different things. Like I said, folks, I don't buy flock. Thanks to the fellows in the railroad industry that I know, that kind of, the railroad modeling hobby, actually, that, you know, gave me this idea years and years ago. And so I use this craft moss, and what I do, I usually like glue it, hot glue it to something to anchor it. And then I spray it with glue, Loctite spray glue, and dip it into my flock, or I could use a brighter color, darker color, whatever. And then what happens is you get this nice looking evergreen bush, right? It really does look like an evergreen because of all the flock and stuff. And then it hardens, and you can stick this on a terrain piece or something. And it's usually pretty durable. I can spray it with a little Mod Podge spray to keep it in there, and this way the flock will last longer. In time, and I build my own trees for gaming. In time, you do lose some of that flock. It happens, but it really, I save myself a lot of money, and it's fun. And remember, folks, the course material that I separated is exactly the same method, nothing different. I take this to the microwave now and just, make sure, do it slowly, right? Stick it in the microwave a couple of minutes at a time. Do that 2 or 3 times. I actually did 2 minutes, took it out, broke it up, spread it out, and put it in for another 3 minutes, and that's it. It was enough to dry, and now these powders are ready to go, really. So I'm going to give it a little more time to air dry right on the workstation, and that's it. So this is my course material. And just so I cover all my bases, whenever I show some of these techniques, remember, safety first. I don't want to make it seem like I'm talking down to anyone, but we always have to think about safety, whether I'm using the hot gun or the hot glue guns or whatever it is, safety first. And if you're not comfortable with a particular step in a technique, don't do it. There's always another way to do it. Okay, so just want to put that out, guys. Okay, folks, I hope that answered my subscriber's question. I decided to do it in a video. It's a lot easier to show it that way. So remember, some points to remember. First, you're going to mix water, glue, and whatever paint you're using with the sawdust. Mix things around nicely. And then you have a couple of options. You can stick it in the microwave like I did today. It took me 15 minutes out of my time to do that batch. And so, stick it in for 2 minutes, take it out, move stuff around, break up the clumps, stick it back in 3 minutes, boom, it was done. Now that flock is pretty much ready for mixing. I'm going to give it a little more time, probably to this afternoon, but it's very powdery already, okay? And then do not leave it in the microwave and walk away. Let's say you did that for 5 minutes. You may come back and actually find a nice textured plate because all of the flock will stick to that plate, and you'll have a nice textured plate without, hardly any powder. So make sure you I use my little tool here, and whatever you use, I've used craft sticks, whatever, churn it up, get it out of the plate, make sure you get as much powder as possible. And if you don't feel comfortable using the microwave, you want to skip that step, go ahead and do so. Don't do it if you feel uncomfortable. You can let it air dry. And I know some people that will take these containers while it's still wet and poke some holes in the lid and leave it out in the sun to dry. And they come back to it, from time to time, churn things up a little bit, cover it up, leave it out, or leave it in a warm area, a room at room temperature, whatever it is. It's going to take a lot longer that way to dry, but if you feel safer that way, do that. Okay, so I hope this answers my subscriber's question. And now it's time to close up the studio because I said I wasn't going to work today, Sunday, and here I am. So we're going to put everything away, and tomorrow we start, tomorrow Monday, we're going to continue our prep for Oathmark. All of this stuff I'm doing is for Oathmark. So stay tuned. We have more unboxings for you and a few other things coming this week, all right, as we prepare for Oathmark week.